You know who has a face for radio? Scott.
And Rand.
Hey guys. Hey Scott, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. My very first time. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, let's pick an ending for you.
This is the Bat Cave, I guess?
Yes, this is the, it's called the Bat Cave. I like it.
Yeah, coming down the pole was really interesting. I'm not sure I can do that again.
We're in an old abandoned firehouse here. Right. Go ahead and pick the ending for us.
Oh, we want to pick an ending for what we're going to be doing here. Oh, I like this one. The guest is so funny.
Tell us what it is.
The guest is so funny. And what the ending has to be?
Yes.
Randall suddenly finds the guest so funny, he has a hard time controlling himself. You can see why I picked this.
Yeah.
So bear that in mind.
I will.
I'm going to be brilliantly humorous today.
That's why I brought you on the show.
Yeah, I know. That's part of what I do.
So, you have a background in radio.
I do.
Tell us about that.
I worked in radio for about 20 years. Actually, the reason I got into radio is because there was a high school radio show that was advertised in my high school, where I went to school in Connecticut. And they said, be sure to listen to this show. It was called Here, There, and Everywhere. And believe me, that show was nowhere. And so I listened in one day. It was awful. And as I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, I could do better than this. And then they said, if you want to be a part of the show, call up. I went, okay. And that's how I started on a career that took me in radio to Texas, Wisconsin, Virginia, New York State, Connecticut, and even to Kansas after a fashion. So I've.
And where was this high school? Where'd you go?
High school I graduated was in Stamford, Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
And they had this little radio show that was on an FM station. And back in those days, FM was something that people sort of had, but no one cared about because the AM stations were the big thing. So this obviously was back in the early 70s. Stop laughing. I know you think I'm uncontrollably funny, but that's the way it was. And this station ran beautiful music all day long up until 3 o'clock. And at 3 o'clock, there were 3 high schools in Stamford. There was a Catholic school and 2 regular secular high schools. I went to one of the secular schools. We would switch off, and one day would belong to the Catholic high school and so on. At 3 o'clock, all of a sudden, you'd hear the station identification. Then we'd come on playing all kinds of wild rock and roll music and doing crazy things.
Rebellious.
Yeah, that was kind of what we did. Yeah. And we had fun. And then at 4 o'clock, station ID, and we're back to the Montavani strings. So that was how I got started in radio. And It was such fun. Then I got a degree in television and radio.
Did you have like a nickname or something like that?
I have had a couple of different air names. Some of them were given to me.
Oh, yeah?
In fact, there's a story behind one of them. My very first commercial job was actually working the all-night show at a rock station in Washington, D.C., and I was excited. So I'd gone in for a couple of days to just watch the guys on the air and see how they ran the control console and all that. And my name is Scott Slocum, by the way, so I'm all set to go, and I'm driving in, and I'm supposed to go on the air at midnight. About 11 o'clock, I'm driving over to the radio station so I can sort of get my last instructions from the disc jockeys on the air. And he comes on and he says, coming up at midnight tonight, it's Terry Scott. I went, Terry Scott? I thought they hired me. And I was mad because this is my first job. I was actually going to get paid on the radio. I'd worked in college radio and high school radio. This was going to be my pay.
So you legitimately thought
I thought they'd hired somebody else.
No.
And I knocked at the back door and I'm like, really mad. And I go, so who's Terry Scott? He goes, well, you are. Bob Raleigh wanted you to be Terry Scott. I go, Bob Raleigh, whose real name wasn't Bob Raleigh, by the way. So at that radio station when I worked there, I was Terry Scott. Now, I had another time, you mentioned radio names. Because I was Terry Scott at this radio station, I actually got a job working during the week, another summer, at another radio station. Mm-hmm. Well, I couldn't be Terry Scott at that station because I was Terry Scott where I was still working weekends at the other station. So I picked a name by going to a dictionary of names, and I picked the exact middle of the surnames and became Kenworthy. And then I flipped into all the first names. It was Eugene. So I became Gene Kenworthy. So on that station, I was Gene Kenworthy. On the other station, I was Terry Scott, and no one knew who Scott Slocum was. So yes, I have had air names like that.
Huh. Mm-hmm. Cool.
It's an interesting way to do business.
Because some of the people we work with in Rampant have nicknames. Like Robert, he calls himself This Funny Guy. I don't know if he gave himself that name or if that was already his name, but he's a funny guy. I don't have a nickname. I never have.
Well, Rand is sort of a nickname.
That's true. It's kind of
His real name is Randallowski, just so you'll know.
Randallowski, Brunerevsky.
And so it goes.
Yes. But yeah, so that was your nickname. Those were your nicknames, I should say.
We call them air names because it's what you use on the air.
Air names. I get it because it's on the air. Oh man, that's funny.
And that's the way it is.
Oh, it's a tagline. Oh man. Thank you for liking and subscribing, guys. Have a wonderful day.
Pick an air name you like.